तत्परं पर्याय विद्महे ज्ञानलिङ्गेश्वराय धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ योगमहर्षि डॉक्टर स्वामी गीतानंदगिरि गुरु महाराज की जय। ओम पुदुवै कलैमामणि पुदुवै शक्ति योगचारिणी अम्मा जी मीनाक्षी देवी भवनानी गुरु माता की जय। ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। नमस्ते, स्वागतम, सुप्रभात, शुभ दिनम, bonjour, buongiorno, buonasera, buonanotte, huya more, boreda, kia ora, salamat pagi, ayubovan, ayushman bhava, and salom. Welcome back to another Saturday morning, and happy Navaratri to everyone who's celebrating it. Happy New Year to everyone who's celebrating it. Happy anything to those who are celebrating. And our compassionate blessings and love for those who are struggling at this moment with life on different parts of this planet. May we all come together as humanity, supporting each other in our growth. This morning I wanted to go forward on one of the beautiful practices of the Gitananda tradition. One of the strengths of this tradition is the presence of numerous techniques that put into actuality the concepts of yoga. So on one side we have the concepts of yoga, and on another side we have the practices of yoga, and often you don't find a bridge between them. And so people think, oh, that's all theory, and people think this is all practice. And you either get locked in your mind or you get locked in your body, forgetting your mind and body are both part of who you are. In this tradition, one of the strengths I would say is that every concept that is brought out in the tradition has also the practice to go with it, so that you actualize in yourself those high concepts. So the ideal becomes real. So it's not just an ideal in the mind, but it actually becomes real. And that is a very important need for us as a human being, because it is like if you tell young kids, be good, be good. The kid is fine, okay, be good. And then you say, and then they ask the next question, how can I be good? So you say, be good, be good. Yes, how can I be good? And people don't know what to do. It's like the doctor telling the patient, you need to take up a healthy lifestyle. And the patient says, what do I do about it? And even the doctors don't know these days. It is so important that we give a roadmap. We need to give a practical approach so that these high concepts become part and parcel of every cell in our body. Thank you, Appu. This is the 90th session, so that's quite a quite a place to be today. Quite a place to be today. We want to bring the highest of the concepts into our very existence. When we talk about the yama niyama, this becomes a very big issue because people understand it conceptually. But then how to apply it in your day-to-day life? How to bring it into your day-to-day life? And over the last few weeks we have been talking about the Jnanendriyas, we have talked about the Karmendriyas, we have talked about the Ekendriya, and throughout this the common thread has been about Pratyahara. Pratyahara, the forgotten limb of yoga. People talk about it. Yes, you need Pratyahara. What to do about it? Everyone talks about the weather, nobody does anything about it. Every day, everyone talks about pratyahara, no one does anything about it. Because we understand it conceptually. Yes, we have to disengage from the sensory apparatus. The senses are going out towards the sensory objects. The indriyas are searching for nourishment through the vishayas, the sensory objects. So, we are constantly searching for nourishment. The senses are going out. They want to engage. They want to go out and catch hold of something. Like the 8 arms of the octopus. Constantly going out and trying to latch on to something. Yes, we need to disengage. Wonderful. We have to withdraw ourselves like the tortoise withdraws its limbs. Ah, beautiful. Very nice. Very nice. I think, yes, that was said in the Bhagavad Gita. Yes. All conceptual. Pratyahara is required to move from Indriya Jala into Indriya Jaya. You have to move out of the web of the senses and become a master of them. Go into Indriya Atita, beyond the sensory apparatus, into a suprasensory, transsensory, parasensory situation. Conceptually, all of it is fine. And you say, okay, fine. I heard you teach asana. Yes. You teach pranayama. Yes. You even teach meditation. Yes. Do you teach pratyahara? And people are like, what do I do about it? So it becomes this conceptual thing that you think you can think your way out of it. You can never think your way out of anything, okay? Because the whole problem was created by the thinking process. It's like asking the person who's the problem to solve the problem. They're not going to, because most of the time they don't even know they are the problem, okay? Go and ask Putin and that Sky guy. No. People have no idea they are the problem, okay? That's what Swamiji said. You don't have problems, you are the problem. The moment you realize you are the problem, you want to get yourself out of the way and everything solves itself. When we say we want to disengage ourselves, we want to disengage the mind from its interaction. Swa-vishaya asamprayoge chittasya is how the pratyahara process occurs. Swa-vishaya asamprayoge. You have to disengage. Samprayoge is to link yourself. Asamprayoge is to disengage. Excellent. How does this happen? How can you bring it into reality? How can you put it into practice? How can you translate the theory into practice? We talk about translational medicine. We have to talk about translational yoga these days. Because the concepts have to become reality. The ideal has to become real. When you want this to happen, you want to translate the concept into actual practice. You need guidelines for it. You need a methodology for it. And this is where Swamiji has given us this amazing practice called the Prana Kriya. Prana Kriya. And it is an amazing pratyahara practice that enables us to start to manifest pratyahara in our own life. Not just talk about it. It's nice to talk about it, okay, but do we manifest it? It's like people talk about love. Okay, do you manifest it? You talk about consciousness, do you manifest it? You talk about everything, do you manifest it? You talk about yoga, do you manifest it? We need to manifest yoga, not just talk about it. You have to become yoga, yoga has to become you. Then it is true yoga. So this practice, Prana Kriya, is a practice where we are utilizing the breath. The breath is always the link. The breath is the link between the body and the mind. Remember, Pranamaya Kosha lies between Manomaya Kosha and Annamaya Kosha. So always the link between mind and body is the breath. So without working on the breath, you cannot link the mind and the body. And this is why asana practice without the breath, without the mind is physical exercise. Trying to sit quietly, but without the breath, without the body awareness, is again just sitting quietly. It is not dhyana at all. It's quiet sitting. It's good for you, but it's not meditation, it's not dhyana. This is where the concept of utilizing the breath. And why do we utilize the breath? Because the breath is the vehicle for prana. Vehicle of prana. So the vehicle for prana to move is the breath. This is why pranayama exists. Where you are utilizing the breath in order for us to experience the flow of the prana and enhance our understanding and experience of prana itself. And what is prana? We have already seen it is Brahman itself. So coming back, the breath is being used as a vehicle to become mindful of the pranic flow, and you want to enhance the pranic flow and the mindfulness into the brow center. The brow center, the Ajna Chakra. Jna is gnosis. Jna is the root of jnana. Gnosis, Gnosis, gnosis. It's not no. It's not gnosis and it's not gnosis. It's no. Gno, no. Nya, jnana. What we want to do is, we want to develop the capacity of a cognitive process. So Pratyahara is a cognitive process where you are utilizing the power of choice, that superpower of being human, yes. You are utilizing it in order to transcend the sensory engagement. We have seen how the lower five centers, Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipuraka, Anahata and Vishuddha, are all linked to the Pancha Jnanendriyas, the Pancha Karmendriyas. We want to transcend the sensory engagement, the sensory experience. We want to transcend it and go beyond it into the Mana, the Ekendriya, where you have the link towards the Buddhi, which is the power of choice, because it can know the difference. It has the discernment, Viveka. So this is the area where you are developing Viveka and Vairagya, the two wings to fly high. You want to fly above the sensory experience into Pratyahara. Viveka, Vairagya are the two wings. Viveka and Vairagya are related to this center, the Ajna. Remember the two petals there? Think of them as two wings of Viveka and Vairagya. Viveka is discernment. So you know the difference. You have that sensitivity in your apparatus. But then you also have to have objectivity. So the objectivity is Vairagya, the sensitivity is Viveka. And when you have sensitivity and objectivity towards your sensory experience, you start to be able to transcend them. When you don't have objectivity and you only have subjectivity, you are locked in them. So here the jump is from subjectivity to objectivity. That is where the jump is becoming. So instead of just saying, I am seeing, I am tasting, you are like, okay, fine. There is a sensation of smell, there is a sensation of taste, but I am a step above that. So how do I want to respond to that sensation rather than react to it instinctively? That is where this power of the choice coming from the Ajna Chakra comes in. Now when we look at the Ajna Chakra, this Ajna Chakra is one of the chakras, one of the few chakras, which also has within it a focal point of consciousness called a bindu. A bindu is a focal point of consciousness. So the Ajna chakra has an Ajna bindu. The Trikuti at the top of the head also has a Trikuti bindu. These two are the chakras that have a bindu, which is a focal point of consciousness. Bindu is that aperture between the manifest and the unmanifest. So we want to tap into the power of the Ajna chakra, we want to tap into the power of the Ajna bindu by focusing on this Bhru Madhya, the brow center. But the brow center itself is slightly external. So you want to move from what is called the Bhru Madhya bindu, which is Bhru, eyebrows, Madhya, middle. That's why we put the kumkum here. So we want to move from the Bhru Madhya, we want to go in, we want to go inward. So this going inward a couple of inches, you start to hit a point which is the Ajna Bindu. This Ajna Bindu is, if you want to correlate it, see the Bindus are not physical. Okay, it's like the chakras are not physical, they are beyond that. But there are physical correlates to all of these concepts. So the physical correlate of the Ajna Bindu is a region in your brain. If you go in from here a couple of inches, when you go in from here, you come upon an area, and that area is where the hypothalamus, which is part of your brain, and the pituitary gland, which is the master conductor of your endocrine orchestra, where they come together. So we talk about the hypothalamo-pituitary axis. Of course, then they go down and they work on other things. So the hypothalamus, which is part of your nervous system, gets connected to your pituitary, which is part of your endocrine system, and then they govern the lower endocrine glands, for example, the adrenals. So you have something called HPA axis, hypothalamo-pituitary adrenal axis. Or it may be hypothalamo-pituitary gonadal axis, hypothalamo-pituitary thyroid axis. So the hypothalamo-pituitary axis, which is the interface between your nervous system and endocrine system. This is where they used to call it endocrinology. Then they realized you have to call it neuroendocrinology, neurological and endocrinological. Neuroendocrinology, and then they realized how you think, how you emote, how you feel influences this. They created a new term which is called psychoneuroendocrinology. And then someone had a brain wave and they said, oh my God, our immune system is connected to this. So psychoneuroimmunology, PNI. PNI. This is where they came upon that. What a beautiful way. What a beautiful way to understand this. Hypothalamo-pituitary axis, which lies at the root of psychoneuroimmunology, psychoneuroendocrinology, which influences every cell in your body. Remember, the endocrine glands are not local. They are acting all over your body. Every endocrine gland, its hormone is going to act on every cell in your body. And this is why the hypothalamo-pituitary axis is so important and the hypothalamus is so important. I like to say the hypothalamus is the center of our physical existence. It is an amazing, amazing aspect. I tell you, the hypothalamus, you take out the hypothalamus and you don't have a life at all, okay? You don't have a life worth living. Let me put it that way. Because it governs everything. The hypothalamus governs your endocrine function, it governs your immune function, it governs your sexual function, it governs your temperature regulation, it governs your autonomic nervous system, it governs whether you eat or you don't eat, it governs whether you sleep or you don't sleep. Come on, after that, what else is there as a human being you want to do? Huh? The brainstem just keeps you going, okay? In a vegetative mode. You want a life, your hypothalamo-pituitary axis better be functioning well. That hypothalamo-pituitary axis is the physical correlate of the Ajna Bindu. Now this hypothalamo-pituitary axis is where the internal decision making for maintenance of homeostasis occurs. What determines your homeostatic balance in your body? For those who are not from science background, I'm sorry, but today is going to have a lot of this. Because it's just marvelous how these pieces of the jigsaw puzzle come together. Science and spirituality coming together into a Purna Swarupa, a wholesome experience. The hypothalamus is the center of all your homeostatic mechanisms that regulate and maintain balance in you. The very fact that we have any sort of physiological balance is thanks to the hypothalamus. And all the feedback mechanisms, positive feedback mechanisms, negative feedback mechanisms from different parts of the body, saying, hey mom, I need some more, hey dad, stop making noise, whatever be the, all that positive, negative feedback from every cell in your body, all of that feeds back to the hypothalamus. All that feeds back to the hypothalamus and decisions are made how to regulate balance, how to manifest balance. And what is balance? Samatvam. And what is yoga? Samatvam yoga uchyate. And when can you be balanced? When you have moved from reactivity to response ability. You have moved from being reflexive to becoming reflective. You are not reactive, you are responsive. That is the jump, the leap from the sensory engagement to a transsensory experience, a para, supra sensory experience, indriya atita experience. And that is why it all lies here. That is why the whole process of pratyahara is governed by this region. And Swamiji gives us the prana kriya, a methodology through which you can enhance this balance that comes from within. Balance is not outside. Never go looking outside for balance. It will never manifest. Balance lies deep within us. You know, we need to go in and settle into that midpoint. Because balance doesn't lie in the extremes. Balance lies in the midpoint. You look at any scale, take a scale, try to find balance. Balance is always based on the midpoint, not the end points. It's not based on the extreme. That is why no form of extremism can ever create harmony on this planet. Doesn't matter what form of extremism it is. There has to be a midpoint for balance to occur. That midpoint, what is the midpoint where you find balance? That midpoint for balance is that Ajna Bindu, and that correlates your hypothalamo-pituitary axis. So how do you settle into it? Well, you have to exercise it. You want muscles? Go out and exercise. You want your brain to function? Better do some brain exercises, like, counting back from, 1008 and then take 9 out of it. So 1008 and then 999 and then 990 and 981, reverse it. Exercise your brain so your cells will work. Of course, you can do alternate nostril breathing and exercise your brain also. You can do all your topsy-turvy asanas and exercise your brain also. And that is why through the breath, that is a vehicle of the prana, you want to energize, because yato manat tata prana, where the mind goes, the prana will flow. So here you are using a kriya which is a mental practice, and in this mental practice what we are going to do is that we are going to focus on this point, the bhru madhya, the midpoint between the eyebrows. And what we are going to do is that we are going to start breathing. We are going to start breathing. You're like, Dr. Ananda, what have we been doing till now? You have just been breathing enough to survive, not to do anything more than that. without an adequate pranic balance, you're just surviving, okay? Move from survival mode to living mode. And survival mode, there are too many people out there on survival mode. Let's move into living mode. So what you do is that as you breathe in, you feel the energy moving through this brow center and moving out maybe a foot or so in front of you. Not too far away, not too close. Okay? About 12 inches, 30 centimeters in front of you or slightly more. Okay? Now I can see some of you taking a foot rule and putting it here and measuring where it is. Some of you will really do that. And my father warned me about stupid students, okay? He said, be careful of your stupid students. They will bury you when you are in samadhi thinking you are dead. Okay, so make sure. I was reading about hamsters the other day, and that hamsters hibernate. And when they are hibernating, people don't know the hamster is hibernating, and they think it's died. So be careful about that. You know, it is. Yeah, we have my guys on the beach with the boats starting up the engines. What we are doing here is that we are using the breath and you move forward. So you move forward from this point a couple of inches out, and then as you breathe out, okay, here there's a paradox. As you breathe in, you move out. As you breathe out, you move in. And people get very confused with this. People get very confused while doing this. So if you want to think of it like this, you think breathe in, move forward, breathe out, move back. Leave that in and out, because breathe in, move forward, breathe out, move back. And yes, Padma, Mariki talked about bubble gum, stretching bubble gum to get a feel of this. Sometimes you have to really do weird things to help your students. Being a teacher is not easy, okay? If anybody says, Dr. Ananda, is it a good career option? Unless you love teaching. Unless you love teaching and unless you love exploring what this life is all about, what this universe is all about. Because the more you teach, the more you learn, the more you teach, the more you grow. It's beautiful. But anyway, coming back. So as we breathe in, we are going to be taking the energy forward. As we breathe out, we take the energy back in, and now we go in deep into the folds of the brain. Yes, the brain has folds. We go deep into the brain folds to that hypothalamo-pituitary axis, the Ajna Bindu, which is basically a very nice place. It's a cave. So for all of us searching for caves, I'm always searching for that cave with Wi-Fi, okay? Get a cave for me with Wi-Fi and let me teach, and I'll just be in that cave for the rest of my life. We all want to find that cave and just be there. You know where the cave is? The cave is that cavernous area where the pituitary gland is housed. It's actually a depression in your skull. The base of your skull has a depression, and in that depression, the pituitary is protected. I always like to joke that if any structure in your body is well protected, it means it's vital. And so men, there are structures that are not well protected, so please get your priorities right. But getting back in here, the pituitary fossa, it's called the pituitary fossa. It is a depression in the base of the skull in which the pituitary is housed. The pituitary is housed in that. It's a very beautiful thing. When you look at this, I think as a medical student, this is what really gave me the highest bliss, is finding out these things and say, wow, look at that. And that cavern, with the pituitary and all its blood supply around it. That's why those blood vessels are called the cavernous plexus. A plexus of nerves around those blood vessels, like a beautiful meshwork around the pituitary gland, because the pituitary needs to do all that work, so it has heavy blood supply and heavy nerve supply. And it's a beautiful thing, cavernous plexus, that cave that lies within. So when you breathe out, you are taking your mind and that energy back inward to settle into that cave. Breathing in, you move forward. Breathing out, you move backward to settle yourself. So every time you breathe, you are moving out into the world. Breathing in, moving out into the world. Breathing out, moving back into your inner world. As you breathe in, you go into the external world. As you breathe out, you come back into your internal world. Now you know what? Every time you breathe in, there is a sympathetic drive. The sympathetic drive comes because you're going out into the world, okay? But then when you breathe out, you're settling into yourself and the parasympathetic drive comes in. And that is why going out, inhalation is stressful, stress response. Exhalation is relaxation response. And you are finding this balance between the stress response and the relaxation response. And this is why when you breathe out, you are going in and you are settling yourself into a state of balance. Often I have had students say, wouldn't it be easier? Oh, when I do it, I feel that breathing in, I should go in, and breathing out, I should go out. I am like, it's not meant to be easy. It's meant to be purposeful. Life is not meant to be easy. Life is meant to be purposeful. That is what Swadharma is all about. Fulfilling your purpose. Living a life that is purposeful. So what we are doing, breathing in, you are moving forward. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you're going deep into it. And you're going deep into it. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can now add a short kumbhaka by doing the Savitri Pranayam. So there's a kumbhaka held out and a kulda held in out there and held out in here. Okay? Where? Breathe in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 2, 3. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 2, 3. In. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 2, 3. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 2, 3. In. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 2, 3. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 2. The constant repetition of this practice. You are constantly going out but coming back in. You're going out but you're coming back in. You're going out but you're coming back in. You're going out but you're coming back in. And where do you end? Coming back in. And at that point you settle yourself deep. After 9, 18, 27 rounds of this practice, setting yourself deep into that Ajna Bindu, that focal point of consciousness within the Ajna Chakra. That is letting the mind, the breath, the prana, all of it come together into a supra trans-sensory experience. Bringing about a sense of balance, inner balance, samatvam, equilibrium. bringing about a physiological sense of homeostatic balance, a mental equanimity, emotional balance, and a capacity to settle into one's own self. That concept of withdrawing ourselves from the sensory engagement, and like a tortoise withdrawing its limbs, coming back into itself, we withdraw and come back into this beautiful cave, our own cave, that guha that lies deep within us. Very beautiful practice, this prana kriya. A practice that actualizes the experience of what pratyahara is. Strengthening the power of choice, strengthening viveka and vairagya, discernment and metacognitive objectivity, strengthening the capacity to be responsive and have the ability to respond, responsibility, strengthening the capacity to introspect and have the capacity to develop intuition. All of these qualities that are the result of the pratyahara, that very important step in our journey towards the inner life, in our journey towards the antaranga, the internal aspects of yoga, in our journey towards the samyama. It is vital that we find our balance within our own self. We need to find that place where we are at ease with ourselves. We are empowering our own self. We are becoming our own master, Swaswami. This type of practice will harmonize the physiological function that is governed by the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and that whole axis. It enables us to also overcome emotional volatility that is often triggered by the sensory engagement. It is a beautiful prelude, a preparation to experience the inner states of meditation, dhyana. And it becomes a stepping stone for that leap into the higher aspects of yoga. Those aspects that enable us to dwell deeper into our own self, trying to find answers to the question, who am I? Koham, Nanya. Answers to the question, what is my purpose? We want to develop a sense of purposefulness, finding our purpose, manifesting it, and letting our life be one which is purposeful, full of purpose. What a beautiful practice. I think it's one of my go-to practices whenever I need to do something to find that inner balance. In times of turmoil, we cannot seek answers outside. And in order to find the answers deep within ourselves, we need to have that placidity, tranquility, that chitta prasadanam that Maharishi Patanjali talks about. Prasadam adhigacchati, as they say. That deep inner sense of ease, stability, balance, samabhava, samatvam, sthita prajna. This is one of those practices that really brings it into actuality. Marvelous practice, prana kriya, where we are utilizing the breath, through the breath, the prana, and regulating it through the power of choice, which is the mana, and letting that mana and prana work together in an active process. That's why it's called a kriya. And the final settling into that deep spot, sweet spot, that sweet spot within ourselves. Wanted to share this with all of you because in the world today, our sensory engagement is triggering the stress response. You already know I don't like to call it a response, I say it's the stress reaction. But it's triggered so often that we need a counterbalance. Pratipaksha bhavanam. We need a counterbalance. And the prana kriya offers that. And yes, mugs. When we all practice it together, we are all connected. Just like all those trillions of cells in my body are connected to each other. Cellular Bluetooth. Cellular Bluetooth. Similarly, when we practice together, we strengthen our interconnections. Everyone, everything is connected. And the more we realize that interconnectivity, the more at ease we'll be. The more we divide, the more uneasy we'll feel. Unity is what yoga is all about. Finding that unitive impulse, that state of unitiveness where we are all one. Keep practicing the prana kriya. I felt it was a natural progression that after our discussions on the jnanendriya, karmendriya and the manas, along with the previous discussions on pratyahara, I felt that this was a very important component to be shared, and so I'm sharing it today. Thank you everyone for being there on the other side of the screen, because when we are all there together, well, the energy is something very different. Let's work towards elevating ourselves, elevating each other, elevating the whole of consciousness. Namaste, Dhanyavadaha, thank you so much. Nandri, Vanakkam.